House to formally recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and move the U.S. embassy there.
While previous presidents have made this a major campaign promise, they failed to deliver. I am delivering.
What the president did today was, one, listen to the will of the American people. They just unanimously voted again 6 months ago, Republicans and Democrats, to do this.
The decision sparking a ripple effect around the world as furious Palestinians burn American flags and call for 3 days of rage. Let's get right to Connor Powell live in Jerusalem for reaction. Good morning, Connor.
Well, good morning. Yeah, for Israelis, this is a day of celebration, although the response has been muted somewhat on both sides from Palestinians and Israelis compared to what the fears were. It's not to say there couldn't still yet be widespread violence, but so far, people are trying to figure out what does this all mean. Now, Israelis, including Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and across the political spectrum, praised President Trump for this decision last night. This is something that they had really hoped the president would make a decision on. He campaigned on it like other presidents, but he came through, and for a lot of Israelis, that was the real success in his presidency, to see him take this step to something that they had long wanted. Prime Minister Netanyahu thanked him. Other Israeli leaders thanked him. Last night, they put up images of the American flag on Jerusalem's old city. Palestinians are angry and frustrated. There are calls for days of rage. There is a general strike taking place right now in the West Bank, but we haven't seen the widespread violence that was feared. There have been some pictures of people protesting in Ramallah, burning the American flag and burning pictures of President Trump. But the violence that we had feared and that has been talked about so far, Jillian, Rob, has not taken place. It could easily take place tomorrow when there are prayers, the Friday prayers. But so far, things here are relatively calm in comparison to the fears.
All right. Well, yeah, we certainly have to see what happens. This will stir the pot, no doubt about that. Connor, thank you so much.
President Trump being harshly criticized for his Jerusalem announcement, some saying his decision ruins our image around the world.
Former Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld says it is inevitable that people will not like the move that he just made, but there is a reason that the American people put him in office.
The idea that the behavior or the conduct or the decisions or the positions being taken by the President of the United States are ruining our image around the world, I think is a massive overstatement. The reality is that the American people made a conscious decision to put in the presidency of the United States someone who had never served in government, military or civilian. I would have to search through history to see if there's ever been a president who had never served in government. Now, why did they do that? They did that because they wanted someone who'd never served in government. And that's what we've got. He does not behave like an establishment politician. And that is hard for establishment politicians and establishment media to accept, because it's not the normal behavior of a seasoned politician.
House Republicans demanding answers over thousands of text messages involving the FBI agent kicked off of the special counsel's Russia probe.
Yeah, very interesting story here that continues to develop. Todd Pyro joins us now with what those anti-Trump text messages could mean for a couple of investigations. Todd.
That's right, Rob. Jillian, good morning. The Capitol Hill hot seat welcomes another high-profile government official today, with FBI Director Christopher Wray expected to be questioned about those 10,000 texts. Right now, Justice Department officials are reading through those texts between FBI officials Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. FBI counterintelligence agent Strzok worked on the Robert Mueller Russia probe, but was reassigned after the discovery of those anti-Trump texts exchanged with Page, with whom he was having an affair. The disclosure of those messages bolstered Republican concerns about the objectivity of Mueller's probe, although it's unclear how many of those texts have anything to do with Trump or the probe itself. Strzok was present during the FBI's July 2016 interview with Hillary Clinton over her private email server shortly before then FBI Director James Comey called her actions extremely careless without recommending criminal charges. And he also oversaw the Bureau's interviews with ousted National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, who pleaded guilty on Friday to lying to FBI investigators in the Russia probe.
I'm proud to be joined by my fellow conservatives in the House to call for an investigation into the FBI's procedures that allowed Hillary Clinton to receive special treatment. We'll also investigate the unprecedented bias against President Trump.
Justice Department officials say the process of reading and redacting those texts could take weeks. Meantime, Donald Trump Jr. told House investigators yesterday that he did not talk to his father about his June 2016 Trump Tower meeting with a Russian lawyer at the time that it happened. Rob, Jillian, over to you.
All right, Todd, thank you. A manhunt underway for a crook posing as a police officer to steal painkillers. Investigators in Houston say the armed man demands pills from local pharmacies and threatens violence if he doesn't get what he wants. He's been at it for months. Police say he may also be tied to looting in the days after Hurricane Harvey.
House Republicans voting in favor of making concealed carry permits valid across state lines. The Senate now working on their own bill in this matter, but the major victory for gun supporters here is causing a big rift between lawmakers on both sides of the aisle.
This legislation simply affirms the right of law-abiding citizens to effectively exercise their right in other states as they do at home.
A failure for the American people, but great for the powerful corporate gun lobby and gun manufacturers.
Well, the bill amends the federal criminal code, allowing the transport of handguns across state lines so long as both states do allow concealed carry, even though they have different standards for that. President Trump is expected to sign this bill if and when it reaches his desk.
A controversial decision by the Department of Veteran Affairs. Officials announcing they're slashing funding for a program that helps homeless veterans. The $460 million program has been credited with drastically cutting homelessness. Secretary David Shulkin says that overall funding for veteran homelessness would remain.
Well, Congressman Al Green's attempt to impeach the president failed miserably.
On Trump, by causing such harm to the society of the United States, is unfit to be president and warrants impeachment.
He wore his American flag tie. The House Democrats' articles of impeachment did not allege President Trump committed any crime. Instead, argued that he is a disgrace to the presidency. But that vote did fail, 364 to 58. Top Democrats, including Nancy Pelosi, tried to stop Green's attempt, saying that now is not the time.
How about this? Even the First Lady is a fan of fast food. Melania Trump and Second Lady Karen Pence spotted at the famous Texas burger chain Whataburger.
I've never had one of those. No word on what they ordered, but for themselves. But they did treat the press pool to a whole bunch of French fries during a trip to Texas to meet with first responders and victims in the wake of Hurricane Harvey.
That's cool.
Yeah. All right, 9 minutes after the hour now, the defense claimed it was an accident. So everyone wants to know, why wasn't the illegal immigrant accused of killing Kate Steinle at least convicted of manslaughter?
That was the first time that we'd heard the word brandishing during this 5-week trial. There's no evidence that the defendant did that.
Well, one juror breaking his silence to explain the verdict that stunned really the entire nation.
And can I get cybercrimes for 200?
Stephanie Us is a history professor who teaches in some novel ways, and I want to hear about that.
You are the devil, Alex Trebek.
A one-time record-setting Jeopardy contestant now in the hot seat with police. We'll tell you about it.
Donald Trump Jr. grilled behind closed doors in Congress for 10 hours about his contacts with Russia as Democrats try to build their collusion case.
This as Republicans demand the case into Hillary Clinton's email be reopened as we learn of brand new anti-Trump bias within Robert Mueller's team. Here now to weigh in is the former FBI Deputy Assistant Director of the Counterterrorism Division, Terry Turchi. Thanks for joining us this morning. Let's start with what happened yesterday, the 10 hours or so that Donald Trump Jr. spent testifying, and all the reports coming out last night and today talking about the fact that he didn't speak about the conversations he had with his father, with President Trump, after that Russian lawyer meeting. Right. What's your takeaway when you heard what went down yesterday?
Well, I think that we're in the middle of this, and we don't know what Donald Trump Jr. said in front of the House. But I have to tell you, this is really unusual that you would have a situation develop, and this is a big crisis for the FBI, by the way, which usually faces a crisis of some stature about every 15 years like this. But this is different in that you have the same FBI agent on both of these investigations, the Clinton case and now the Mueller special counsel, or until he was dismissed, the Mueller special counsel. And none of these things happened in a vacuum. He was involved in the strategy. He was involved in the planning and the implementing of the interview of Michael Flynn, of the interview of Hillary Clinton, and look at how differently those turned out. So you have one agent in completely different ways of approaching this, and that doesn't make sense. I think that if you look at the Clinton interview, you can see why people don't think this is a impartial investigation. You've got an interview where you had as many people in the room there on her side as you did FBI agents doing the interview. That's not how the FBI usually conducts interviews. You or I would not have that kind of situation. And at the same time, the same agent was involved in the Flynn interview, and Michael Flynn didn't even have an attorney. So there's something inherently unfair about the way that looks. And it's just one of many things about this investigation that is really troublesome. And I've talked to a lot of former FBI agents and FBI employees, and they feel the same way. Yeah. And I hope that we can get to the bottom of why this is occurring.
And nobody, I mean, you used to work for the FBI. Nobody wants to indict the entire FBI in this. It's a great organization that has kept Americans safe for a number of years. But it does appear that there was some kind of special treatment here, especially for Hillary Clinton. When you talk about, I think you said here that they had a special team, a smaller team for Hillary Clinton to handle this. It looks like maybe the Flynn investigation was done the way investigations should be done, and Hillary got herself a nice little deal, a special circumstance here. Is that what you allege?
There is clearly a lot of Department of Justice involvement, Department of Justice attorneys in the Hillary Clinton interview. And I think, and again, I have no proof because I wasn't there and I'm not inside the FBI, but the way it looks like DOJ attorneys really kind of carried the day on that and did all sorts of negotiations with Hillary Clinton's team and all of that before any interview ever took place. So that's just not the way you do an interview, and you're not going to get the result if someone you're alleging to have done something, if you're trying to really bear down and get the facts, you're not going to get it. What she's going to have happen is she's going to be totally protected by the fact there are so many people sitting there, and there's so many rules and regs regarding the very interview these agents are trying to do. And I'm glad you said that, Rob, about the rank and file FBI and trying to separate now in our minds the normal job the FBI does and what happened here or what didn't happen. And I'm glad that Congress actually has taken a really good look at this because it just doesn't look right to me.
Okay. Terry Turchi, thank you very much for your insight. We appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
And now to a Fox News alert. Southern California under siege. Powerful winds fueling raging flames. We are there live as firefighters work around the clock in hopes of gaining the upper hand.
Just look at that video from the Sepulveda Pass. Amazing. All right, madness at the mall. A security guard dragged by shoplifters speeding away in an SUV. Whoa. See more of this video coming up. Stay tuned.
This officer is overcome with the heat.
Back now with a Fox News alert. Firefighters putting their lives on the line as the fierce fight against the California wildfires intensifies.
Yeah, this is a big story and a big mess. The flames spreading by the minute, and the worst may be yet to come in this. Jonathan Hunt is live in Santa Paula, where the next 24 hours could be the most dangerous in this. Right, Jonathan?
Yeah, Rob, the Santa Ana winds which fan these flames are maybe gusting up to 80 miles per hour over the next 24 hours. And when you mix hurricane force winds with the kind of flames you're looking at directly right now, you can just imagine how deadly and dangerous that can be. This is part of the Thomas fire in Ventura County. Burned some 90,000 acres so far, destroyed more than 150 homes. And we've got fires burning across Southern California right now. One of the most frightening that we saw in the last 24 hours was in the wealthy enclave of Bel Air in Los Angeles, alongside the very busy 405 freeway. The flames there flared up early morning, right during the rush hour. 4 homes destroyed in that community. Obviously a very dangerous situation. The LAFD says they've now got a handle on that particular fire, but with these Santa Ana winds due to kick off up again over the next few hours and last probably at least 24 hours. Nobody is letting their guard down. This is going to be a very dangerous couple of days in Southern California, Rob and Gillian.
It certainly is scary. Keep yourself safe out there as well, Jonathan. Thank you so much for the great reporting on the ground. An alternate juror speaking out days after an illegal immigrant is found not guilty in the death of Kate Steinle. That juror now reveals that the fact that the killer had been deported from this country 5 times, well, that was virtually ignored.
None of that was discussed during the trial. We were told at the beginning of the trial that immigration was not at issue in this trial. It did not pertain to the evidence or the law surrounding the specific charges that were at issue. The jury had to use the crime that was specified by the prosecutor, and in this case, that was specified as brandishing of a weapon. When that was read to us in the jury instructions at the end of the trial, right before the closing arguments, I think that was the first time that we'd heard the word brandishing during this 5-week trial. There's no evidence that the defendant did that.
In a controversial decision, a California jury acquitted Jose Inez Garcia Zarate of murder and manslaughter. Instead, the shooting in the sanctuary city of San Francisco was painted as an accident by the defense. Zarate now faces federal weapons charges.
A massive backup in the deportation of thousands of illegal immigrants. According to the Washington Examiner, U.S. immigration officials are now facing a backlog of 550,000 illegal immigrants. They were either given amnesty under the Obama administration or let off by liberal judges. That's more people than the entire population of Atlanta.
Well, after years and many presidents promising to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, President Trump finally delivering.
While previous presidents have made this a major campaign promise, they failed to deliver. Today, I am delivering.
Why the president's evangelical base says their commander-in-chief hit it out of the park with this move. Pastor Jeffress is here live. That's next.
And how a Florida mayor almost got away with using disabled parking permits from dead people.
Whoa.
Stay right there.
All right, Senator Al Franken expected to make a big announcement today following an avalanche of sexual misconduct allegations, one that just keeps getting bigger.
And it comes as a Democratic horse rises in the Senate demanding he bow out. Griff Jenkins is live in our nation's capital with new details on the liberal women now leading the charge. Hey, Griff.
That's right. Good morning, Jillian and Rob. If he resigns later today, it will be the Democratic women of the Senate that brought the pressure to bear and new allegations of sexual misconduct. A 7th accusing Franken of trying to forcibly kiss her, and an 8th saying he groped her, posing for a photo. By the end of the day, 14 of the 16 female Democratic senators in the U.S. Senate were calling on the former comedian to resign, and his fellow Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar stopping short on calling him to resign, but tweeting she had spoken to him and was confident he would, quote, make the right decision. But the tidal wave began with New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand.
I do not feel that he should continue to serve. When we start having to talk about the differences between sexual assault and sexual harassment and unwanted groping, you are having the wrong conversation. You need to draw a line in the sand and say none of it is okay. None of it is acceptable.
News of a resignation was first reported by Minnesota Public Radio, but Franken's office downplayed it quickly, tweeting, Senator Franken is talking with his family at this time and plans to make an announcement in D.C. tomorrow. Any reports of a final decision are inaccurate, but the pressure grew. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer joining the chorus of calls to step down, saying, quote, Senator Franken should resign. I consider Senator Franken a dear friend and greatly respect his accomplishments, but he has a higher obligation to his constituents in the Senate, and he should step down immediately. We'll see what the day brings. Rob and Gillian, some questioning the timing over the outrage of Franken, as Roy Moore in Alabama could be headed to Washington and will surely face an ethics investigation.
All right, Griff Jenkins, thank you. An FBI agent now believes an on-duty Border Patrol officer was murdered. This, a major break in the death of Officer Rogelio Martinez. Investigators questioning 2 brothers, one an accused illegal immigrant drug dealer, according to an affidavit. The agency says they found red-stained fabric in their car. They also got a tip the brothers were with a group of illegals, while Martinez and another agent were critically hurt. The local sheriff says they may have been hit by a semi-truck, but their union president says this was no accident. incident. The brothers have denied involvement.
Well, a hero police officer who risked his life responding to last year's horrific Pulse nightclub shooting massacre in Orlando has just lost his job over PTSD from that incident. This comes just 6 months before becoming eligible to receive his pension benefits. The 9.5-year veteran of the Eatonville, Florida Police Department, Omar Delgado, joined us earlier to explain exactly what's going on here.
I was actually told on Monday that because of a fit for duty evaluation that was conducted on me, they saw fit that I wasn't able to continue doing police work.
It almost sounds unbelievable. We are now learning that the terrorist's widow in this case will stand trial in Orlando. A federal judge denying Noor Salman's request to have the hearing out of state over concerns that media coverage wouldn't allow her to get a fair trial. Salman is charged with providing material support to a terror organization and obstruction of justice.
Take a look at this video on your screen. Shocking video showing a mall security guard dragged from a speeding SUV trying to stop suspected shoplifters. New Jersey police say the man hit his head hard and got a concussion. Officers now looking for these 3 suspects spotted swiping items from the mall. They could be facing aggravated assault charges. Wow.
Yeah. Well, a plane bursts into flames moments after takeoff. Terrified passengers inside this British Airways jet say that they could see the fire from their seats. And you can see it there. Scary stuff. Incredible video showing flames shooting out of that British Airways flights. Looks like the engine on the right side. This was headed to Phoenix, or headed to London, I should say, from Phoenix. It reportedly had a fuel leak, and it did land safely. It came back to the airport, landed safely. Nobody was hurt. President Trump receiving high praise from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for recognizing Jerusalem as the official capital of Israel.
We're profoundly grateful for the President for his courageous and just decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and to prepare for the opening of the U.S. Embassy here. This decision reflects the President's commitment to an ancient but enduring truth, to fulfilling his promises, and to advancing peace.
The move also getting approval from his evangelical base. Here now, First Baptist Church senior pastor and Fox News contributor Robert Jeffress. Thank you for joining us this morning. We understand you were on a conference call with White House officials yesterday in regards to this Jerusalem move. Can you tell us about it?
Well, I have been over the last several days on a conference call with State Department officials and White House officials about this. And look, I believe President Trump is a modern profile and courage for having the guts to do what no other American president has been willing to do. And look, those who are devout Jews and Christians celebrate this decision because they believe what the Bible says, that God gave this country to Israel and made Jerusalem the capital 3,000 years ago. But beyond that, this is the right thing to do. I mean, we recognize the right of every other country in the world to name its own capital. Nobody argues with France's right to make Paris its capital city. Why should Israel be any different? I think the president made the right call here.
Well, he's made a lot of, it's been great for him with his evangelical base, and there's a lot of people that do see it your way. I think there is a lot of concern, and there has been in the past from politicians, that this will stir the pot, and you worry about what this is going to do to the Middle East at this point, because it's angered a lot of people as well.
Well, I think the president made an excellent point yesterday when he said the current policy that has been in place for decades certainly hasn't made peace in the Middle East. Maybe it's time to try something new. You know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. I think as the White House, the president, Jared Kushner sit down at the negotiating table, perhaps it's the wise move to go ahead and take Jerusalem off the table to begin with and start negotiating from a position of strength rather than weakness.
You know, a lot of people do think that this is going to derail, as you're talking about, the peace process. And I guess my question to you is, what should we look at and learn from history in regards to this?
Well, I think what we ought to look at history, even for those who don't believe the Bible, history confirms that this land belongs to Israel. You know, this idea of Palestinians, most of our viewers don't know that term Palestine was invented by the Roman Emperor Hadrian in 100 AD as a way of saying to the conquered Jewish people, this land is no longer yours. But history shows that Israel, the Jewish people, occupied this land before the Arabs, before the Palestinians, before the Muslims. And you know, I had an Israeli officer say to me one time, he said, Robert, what if Israel said to the United States, we are no longer going to recognize Washington, D.C. as your capital until you divide a portion of the capital and give it to Canada and another portion of Mexico to be neighborly. That is ludicrous, but that illustrates exactly why the president made exactly the right call. He is on the right side of history, and more importantly, he's on the right side of God.
You're making a good point that nothing in the past has worked. I don't know what will work to solve the problems in the Middle East, but we will find out. Robert, thank you so much for coming on this morning. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Sure.